Hello, everybody. This is Mike from the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. My wife Beth and I would like to invite you to join us each week as we examine life at the intersection of marriage, family, careers, and ministry. Through 28 years of ministry, 26 years of marriage, 23 years of professional careers, and 21 years of being parents to 3 kids, our fun and honest discussions promise to have something for everyone. And now, on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. This is Mike.
And Beth.
And today we're going to do a special pop-up podcast where we're going to go in great detail about our recent trip to the country of Antigua and our stay at the Hawksbill Resort. You had a good time, right, Beth?
Loved it.
So we've put up some pictures and mentioned it on one of the other podcasts, and we had some folks asking, and so we just thought we would just share with Podcast Land kind of a review of the country and the resort in case someone else may want to visit there or they're thinking about visiting there. Just a quick, how are we qualified? Well, this is how we're qualified. Beth and I have been traveling literally since the day we got married. And we got married, and we're from North Carolina. We took our honeymoon in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
Yes, that was an adventure.
It was. So that's the Pacific coast, if you're wondering where that's at,
Yeah.
of Mexico. And we haven't really stopped and looked back. And so we've done a lot of traveling over the years, both personally for vacation. We run a mission organization, and so we lead service trips all over the world. We've been to North America, South America, Central America, Europe, and you've been to Africa a couple times. Mm-hmm. And so we've traveled a bunch. And so
we have not done Asia or Antarctica.
Not yet. We're Australia.
Yeah,
that
really
kind of side and corner of the world, we're not there yet.
It's kind of hard for us, though, as East Coasters, because that's going to take a lot of time to fly there, and we would need a lot of time off for Mark to get there.
And a lot of money.
Yes, that too, which that is a limiting factor on our travel adventures. And so I think one thing that would set us apart from some of the other things you read is we do things a lot on a budget. Like I read a lot of, I follow a ton. Mike follows a lot of travel newsletters and things. I'm in a lot of travel groups on social media. And I think it's all your style, and we're not so like that we're tent camping in these places, but we're also not staying at super duper fancy luxury resorts and flying business class or anything like that. We're flying economy and we're trying to stretch our points and dollars generally when we travel.
Yeah, and so how we got to Antigua is last year Beth and I both turned 50. And so in 2023 we started talking about, hey, for our 50th birthdays, let's just take a trip somewhere. And because we're on the East Coast, it's affordable for us to get to the Caribbean.
Yes.
And we can get there pretty quickly, too. There's a lot of direct flights out of Charlotte or Raleigh. And we can get there. And so I started looking, and we like going places that are off the beaten path a little bit.
Yes.
You know,
not the super mega resort.
Like we've never been to Cancun, like that kind of thing. Like that's not our style.
Yeah.
And so I subscribe to an amazing website and newsletter called Discoverer, and they'll put out articles all the time about hidden gems, either in the U.S. or Europe or the Caribbean or whatever. And they put out one that highlighted Antigua and listed some resorts there and listed Hawksbill. And I started looking into Hawksbill, and it sounded exactly what we were looking for. The problem was Hawksbill was getting ready to do a major remodel in 2024. And they said they thought they would be done by the time we got there in September, which is what we were looking at. But we ultimately decided it wasn't worth taking a chance. And so we chose Roatan instead, which Roatan is part of Honduras. It's a little island off the coast of Honduras. We stayed at Playa Bay, and maybe that could be another review one day. But we had a fabulous time. I mean, loved Roatan, loved Playa Bay. And then ultimately, the remodel was somewhat finished. And even when we went a few weeks ago, there was still one building that was kind of covered up,
Yeah, we didn't hear anything. Like there was no noise or anything, but you could tell it was having work done.
Yeah, so it's not 100%. I'd say it's about 90% probably remodeled. So they ended up running some specials and, trying to get people back. Hey, come check out the new remodel place. And if you booked early enough, you got a nice deal. And we had airline points and stuff. So Beth had always wanted to do a middle of the winter warm trip.
Yes.
And so we chose the first week of February of this year to go to Antigua for 5 nights and to stay at Hawksbill. And so that's who we are. That's how we're qualified to give you our humble opinion. We're not travel agents. We're not making any money off this. Although we will take something. I mean, if Hawksbill wants to, hook us up.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be there. Or Extreme, our other travel company. Yes.
But we're not making anything. We had a great time in Antigua, a great time at Hawksbill, and we just wanted to share it with you. So we'll just go ahead and kick it off right now. Beth, Antigua Airport, what was your thoughts landing there? Do you remember much about it?
It was pretty. I mean, it was just like so many airport. I mean, you could kind of see the water. It was cool flying in. I didn't have a great window seat, but you could see the islands and things as you were flying in. So that was kind of neat flying into the airport. But it was a small airport, simple. I mean, I didn't think customs was bad there compared to some of the other places that we have had to go through.
But there was one aggravating quirk.
Yes.
And that was the fact that
the paperwork that you had to fill out. Yeah.
Which every country does this. You gotta do your declaration stuff of what you're bringing in, who you are, and all that kind of stuff. That's not abnormal. What was weird though, in 2025, there was first the paperwork on the plane,
because most of the time it's out a document on the plane to fill it out
on American. So it wasn't like we were flying
on a budget airline or anything. We were on American Airlines.
So we thought that was a little odd till we got off the plane and got down there to customs, and they had a lady handing out the forms.
Yes.
And I asked her, I was like, can we not do this online? And she said, no, it has to be paper. And
they didn't have pens, we were digging through our bag to get our pens.
Everybody was sitting on the floor because there's no seating.
Or writing on people's backs, or like you're on your suitcase trying to have a hard surface to write on. Because, you're just having to do your typical, like, this is my name, my address, where I'm going, all that stuff. But
so that was kind of a pain.
And
and maybe that's just indicative of a Caribbean country.
Yeah.
And even when we flew into Roatan, they at least had online. Like they waited till you got there,
right?
But they at least had a little QR code.
And Jamaica now has
and Jamaica does it online beforehand.
But one of the problems I have with Jamaica is one time I couldn't do it online beforehand, and then I got to the airport and their Wi-Fi wasn't working. So if you're not planning on using your cell service, that can be hit or miss. We did use the Wi-Fi at the airport in Antigua briefly to check in with our family and say, hey, we're here. Yeah.
And so Hawksbill, if you book directly through Hawksbill, I think not only do you get a better rate, but they give you special
little
luxuries.
Perks. Yeah.
One of the perks is they pay for your taxi.
Yeah.
And so about a week before, they sent me a taxi voucher. And so once we kind of got through customs and we didn't check a bag, we did carry-ons.
Yes.
And so we just went right through. We walked right out on the sidewalk, handed that voucher to the taxi
because they had like a little stand there. And so it wasn't a private taxi. It was just like a taxi.
It was a van. It was a little van.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they took us, and there was two ladies, and they put the 4 of us in there, and they dropped them off at one resort.
I was gonna say, what resort were they at? I can't remember. It was the one.
Was that
the one that's also in Negril?
Is it Royalton?
I think it was.
There. So anyway, it was a resort close to us.
It's one that we later found out they actually have some own the water bungalows or something. Yeah.
So anyway, it was clean. It was nice. The guy was super. But we got there. That part was easy. So I would say if you're going to go and if you're going to go and stay at Hawksbill, book through Hawksbill, because they throw in a free taxi to and from the resort, which is nice. They don't have their own shuttle, but they do pay for a taxi service. That's a luxury you get if you book online through Hawksbill.
Now, a tidbit I will share is when we get off the plane, it's always like, how long is it going to take us? Do I need to get some water or go to the bathroom or whatever before we hop in that taxi? Lesson learned always, if you want those necessities, buy those at the airport, because it looked like it would be about 30 minutes, right?
Maybe less, 20, really.
And it took because we happened to land there are limited flights there. One thing we found is it seems like maybe 1 or 2 flights in per airline a day, and the same thing going out. And we landed around what was their rush hour. So there were times we were kind of at a complete stop going through their little town, through all the winding to get to the resort.
Right, and then stoplights. So it's kind of a free-for-all, but everybody... it was unsafe.
But as an aside, we met a couple. We joked with them, talked to them on the plane, and we ran into them later on. They rented a car and drove. I can't imagine doing that personally, and I consider myself pretty adventurous because I've driven, as we call it, wrong side of the car, wrong side of the road. Like, I know it's not wrong, but in the British,
it's different.
Yeah. And that's the way this was. Like it's like being in, Scotland or London or where have you,
left side.
Yeah. So not only
left side of the road or whatever road.
And not only do you have that, but to Mike, very confusing watching that's when you stop and like what's a yield and where are you going. So I think it would be challenging to drive there, but that other couple that we met, they were brave and they didn't seem to have any problems. They did it. They navigated and did it.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
So we arrived finally at the Hawksbill. First impression of the resort?
So it was really pretty. They helped us grab our bags, and you walk into this like open air area, like is common, I think, in some of these Caribbean resorts. So the first thing you see is someone's there with a wet, cool washcloth, so that if you've been warm in the car, you can freshen up, and they'll offer you a glass of sparkling wine or juice, champagne, whatever you want, water, any of those. And so we did our check-in, and we were able to see this beautiful overlook at the check-in area where you could look out and see the water and the beaches and stuff. So it was like a nice, kind of introduction. It's like as soon as you arrive, you're like, oh, we're here. And one thing we left out, most of these, and this one was not unusual, had a guard station. So they have someone that's guarding the road, and they ask who you are and things when the taxi brings you in. So it felt really secure as well, too, when we were driving in for that.
Right. You can't really step on the property without going through the security, the guard gate.
Yeah.
And so that was nice. And I felt like the check-in went pretty smooth. There was a couple of people who were there, couples that obviously had arrived just before us. They were checking in, but I didn't feel like we waited.
No.
They it was fine, and they had a porter who took all our bags and took them to our room.
Yes.
The room we stayed in, they have at Hawksbill. They have a couple different ways to stay. They have what they consider, I guess, their top of the line rooms, which are the Royal Palm, and that's where Beth and I stayed. They're little bungalows that sit right on the beach, and you literally walk out your glass front doors and you're in the sand. You walk a few more feet and you're in the water. We've never stayed like that before anywhere. So we have those homes. And
as an aside, because what I would like to interject is, as people who are conscious about money, because I know people are like, oh, you travel so much. It was cheaper for us to have an oceanfront bungalow, much cheaper than it is to try to get that on our North Carolina coast. We don't stay oceanfront in North Carolina ever because it's so expensive during the peak season.
Yeah, if we were to get an oceanfront room like that on the North Carolina coast, we'd have paid 5 times as much as what we paid
to do that
there.
Right, yeah. And that's why we're always like a few rows back in the houses we rent or what have you in North Carolina. We've
never stayed on the coast anywhere on any beach
We've never had a walkout, because even when we've been in Negril or Paya Bay, we had to walk to the beach. This is the first time that we had the experience of opening the doors and boom, we're there on the sand.
Yeah, and so that's one. They have motel type rooms you can also rent. That's like a little 2-story motel units. They have, I think, 2 of those buildings, and one of those was the one that was still being renovated right now. And then they have some little bungalows. They look similar to the Royal Palms, but they sit up on top of a cliff.
Yeah.
That's called Honeymoon Cove.
Yeah.
And so you sit up there on the cliff and you overlook the water, but you got to walk down, a little.
It's not
far,
to their little
but you're not going to
beach,
walk out your front door and hit
And
the
be in the
water.
sand.
You're going to walk out and fall into rocks and die, because you're up pretty high. But those are kind of your options. And even with the hotel rooms, they had two. I guess you had the ocean front, and then you had the second row behind them.
Yes.
And so, which I think they called like Garden View or something, which was even cheaper. I mean,
Yeah.
the Garden View hotel unit was the cheapest, and I don't see how anybody couldn't stay there. And this is an all inclusive. I mean, so we'll get into that in just a minute. But food, drinks, everything was included, and so you can really stay at Hawksbill very, very, very affordably. If you don't want to be right on the water and you don't mind staying like in a little hotel unit, and the hotel units look nice. They had little porches.
Because we would see people sitting out on their porch, and even though it was kind of elevated and a few rows back, you could kind of look out. I think they could see over the bungalows and see the water. Yeah.
So I thought we had a Royal Palm King. I thought it was outstanding. I thought the room was clean. I thought it was spacious. It obviously had just been recently renovated. It had a huge bathroom, shower, tub. The bed was comfortable. The AC was cold. I mean, they had a mini fridge that they kept stocked. They had a safe in the room. They had a closet. I mean, I have zero complaints about that room. What'd you think?
So you walk in, and as Mike said, it's kind of like a little duplex, I guess you would say. So there would be, in theory, one person on the other side of you, which we did have, but the walls were fine. It wasn't like they weren't there the whole time we were there, but I didn't hear noise or anything. But we walk around to the front where the ocean is, and you see that, and they have like a little hedge, for lack of a better way, some like greenery that's growing up something. So even the area where your lounge chairs are, when you're outside, there are two lounge chairs under, I would say, a covered area. It's like these wood slats. It's hard to describe. It's not enough shade that like it's going to completely protect you from the sun, but it's a shaded area that you can sit under, and you can drag those lounge chairs out fully into the sand or keep them where they are. And just behind those little lounge chairs, there's like a little outdoor table. It's like a table for two that with a little wooden table and chairs. So you could also, if you wanted to, sit, and have some coffee or tea in the morning. But then you walk in those doors, and it is air conditioned, which is good, because I am a person, and we can talk about this later, but I get a lot of mosquito and other bites, and so that for me is pretty much a deal breaker. If I'm on vacation, I need to have an air conditioned room because I don't want to be eaten up by mosquitoes. With
leaving the windows open
and stuff like that.
Some of those more tropical Caribbean resorts will do,
right?
Because there's a constant breeze,
right, so that's amazing if bugs aren't a problem for you, but for people like me that they are, that's something I'm conscious of. So you have that. When we walked in, they've made like little swans or whatever out of our beach towels and stuff. It was really cute. As Mike said, king bed, little closet, a little kind of area we could set our luggage, and then the bathroom was really big. And for those who care, because we have some friends who are huge fans of bidets, they have a bathtub, which we didn't use, but a bathtub, a shower, a toilet, a bidet, and then your sinks. And so it was a really nice bathroom area.
And I don't know why it took you so long to tell me that was a bidet. We were there 3 days, and I thought it was a water fountain.
No, he didn't. Oh, yeah. But, so I felt like there was plenty of space. It was, simple. I mean, it's not like the Ritz-Carlton or something like that, but clean and everything that I felt like we needed.
You don't go to an all-inclusive Caribbean beach resort and stay in your room.
Right.
Unless
it's a place to sleep. It's a place to change clothes and get ready for dinner or whatever.
Nobody does that.
Most of your time is spent outside.
So for what it was a beautiful room. And like you said, it was nice having the little patio where we had a little square table with chairs, and then that came with two loungers with cushions that we could drag around if we wanted to. I mean, it had a little canopy that they sat under, but we could drag them out to the beach. I mean, right up to the water if you wanted to.
And we were the closest to the side. The one thing I will say, there was, right past us, so you could almost see the guard gate, and it was a public beach to the
We
right.
were the very last bungalow on the property.
Right. And like many Caribbean beaches, the public can walk by on the beach, but we didn't have any issues. I mean, we'd see public people coming and like taking pictures or something, but there was never a problem of anybody like at least where we were staying. There were some people selling some like things over on the actual, when I call them the public beach, within the resort, the shared beach space. But we never had anyone while we were on our beach property like approaching us. We did talk a little bit to our neighbors who were from like the Buffalo, New York, sort of upstate New York area. Yeah. So we got to know them, and we would hang our clothes outside and stuff, but like we would be able to look, and you could just look out. It was, I will say, a very steep drop off into the water. I really wanted to take advantage, since we never get to just sit there. We would time our days around it, but we did spend a good amount of time, I feel like, just sitting in our lounge chairs, watching the sunset, reading,
and we'll
stuff
get to
like
the
that.
beaches here in a moment, but we definitely had a rhythm to our beaches, but we always ended up back at our place
for the sunset.
Yeah. Be able to sit there and watch that.
Yeah.
Food. Hawksbill has 3 restaurants, and I'm going to you're going to hear us compare Hawksbill to Paya Bay and probably to Couples.
Yeah.
We've stayed at a couple of the Couples resorts in Jamaica. The Couples resorts are considered 5-star. They have 5 to 7 restaurants on site. Paya Bay was considered 3-star, and it had one restaurant.
Yeah.
This also was considered a 3-star resort, but it had 3 restaurants.
Yeah.
And I know people have different interpretations of the stars.
Yes.
I think technically it's about amenities. You know, like how many amenities you have ups the number of stars.
Yeah, so this is not the equivalent of like your TripAdvisor rating, where 3 stars means it's just average. The stars are more about like how fancy and how much extra stuff's included, essentially.
And I kind of felt like this fell right in between the two.
Yeah.
I felt like it was nicer than Paya Bay with more amenities.
Right.
But not quite at Couples level.
Right, yeah.
Which has a lot of amenities.
Right.
Like I said, you got 7 restaurants at one resort.
Right.
So we had 3. The main restaurant was their buffet. They served a buffet breakfast, buffet lunch, buffet dinner.
And that's in a big open area. If you listen to one of our other podcasts, when Not All Heroes Wear Capes, and Mike saves someone from a bird drinking from their drink, it's open, so it's like you can hear the water, you can see the water, and you've got the breeze. There's no walls, but it has a ceiling and everything, of course, and it's a very large.
It's a giant covered pavilion.
Yeah, and they have like tablecloths and stuff, so it's not like you're on a picnic table or anything.
Yeah.
I don't want to. It still looks very nice.
It feels like a fine dining buffet outdoors.
You almost forget you're outside sometimes. Yeah.
And then the second, probably most popular one, is a little grill that they have on Sea Grapes Beach. And it's the Sea Grapes Grill. And it's opened primarily for lunch.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's open at dinner. And they serve handheld stuff.
Yeah.
You know, burgers,
fries,
wraps.
sandwich, that
kind of thing. And then there's the only one that you need reservations for. Sits kind of just past the pool. And it sits right on the edge of a cliff, and it's limited to probably about, I would say, gosh, I don't even know if there's 12 tables.
Yeah,
there may
outside.
be 8 to 10 tables.
Yeah.
And they have 2 lunch times you can reserve, at like 12:30, 1:45,
yeah,
something
that
like
was
that.
it, yeah.
And it's first come, first serve. You book it the night before. When you check in for your dinner, you just say, hey, I'd like to do the reservation restaurant tomorrow, and they sign you up. And so that's where we ate lunch most days. And
it's a relatively limited menu. It's got, like, they had ribs, which you got most of the time and were really good. They usually had a fish,
a chicken,
like a jerk chicken, kind of Caribbean inspired,
But the cool thing, they had a guy actually there with a grill.
Just
cooking it
we were
there.
always sitting near that too, so you could just look over and there he'd be grilling.
Right. So it felt like a really cool, just like you're sitting on the top of this cliff looking over the water, beautiful view, cookout.
Yeah.
You know, he's just, what do you want, ribs? All right, I got you.
Yeah.
You know, and he just grills up some ribs and there you go.
Yeah.
And again, it's all inclusive. And then they had They had standard stuff to drink there.
Yeah.
But you had guys from the bar that would walk over and get your order, walk back to the bar, and then come back and give it to you. So I thought the Sea Grapes Grill and that grill for lunch were more than adequate. I thought they were both really good, the meals we got there. We ate the breakfast buffet every day.
And it was buffet. And it's very, what I found in any of these resorts, couples included, is because I think so many people from the UK come, they usually have what I would consider more American style breakfast foods. And then they also have like that British influence. So like the baked beans, the eggs, like some of those things, they have sort of that British inspired. And then they have your American, like your... pancakes and French toast and eggs, but they did have an omelet station, and not only could you get omelets, you could do like a fried egg or a poached egg, and they had a little waffle station.
Yeah, and they would make all this
made
for
to
you.
order. Those
Yeah.
would be made to
And
order
so,
when you walked up
with all these toppings and
Yes.
stuff. And so they had we ate the buffet obviously every morning for
Breakfast,
breakfast.
yeah.
We'd eat the buffet for dinner. We never ate the buffet for lunch. Which was
so we
fine.
can't speak to that. But I did read some people online said the buffet was better at lunch than at dinner.
Yeah,
but
there were
we don't
several
know.
that said the lunch was the best of the three.
Yeah,
but
we wouldn't
never
know.
ate there.
Yeah.
But the buffet itself is a buffet, but it's not a bad buffet. And probably they have a lot of variety, and there's probably a 50% turnover. There's probably half of it is the same every single day, and the other half is different most days.
And one thing I did like, as far as authenticity, and they had this also in Jamaica, but because we have this work, we have friends, and when we stay in Jamaica, traditional level food while we're there, and taught us a lot about things like the salt fish, or I forget what the name of that, Aki. Yeah, so there's some things like that. Those types of things were also on the buffet. So if you wanted to have something a little more Caribbean inspired and authentic, they would have that. But then they would also have things like lasagna or, what have you, whatever it was that night. So it was quite the variety of food. I would say for me, when you ask about what would be the quote weakest thing about this that might have, in my opinion, probably kept it from leveling up a star would be the food, just because it is buffet. And I think for buffet food, it was fabulous, but
it's as good as a buffet could be.
Right, exactly.
But it's a buffet.
But it's not like made to order right there for you.
And you could get, there was never steak or lobster.
No,
but you could
charge
order
it.
that.
You could order that for more. We didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we wouldn't know about that, but yeah, you could do that.
But even at night, I mean, they had prime rib one night.
Yeah.
They had duck one night. I mean, so they're putting out some pretty good stuff, meat-wise.
Which, on that food theme, one other thing I will say, and again, this depends on what you want. And I think this is what's hard when people's like, what's the best resort to go to, or what do you think? Some people love big resorts that have a lot of food variety, that have a lot of entertainment. That would be the other thing. That's not going to be here. They did have entertainment every night, but that was, so if you went at night, they would have, generally it was a DJ, that would play some music, and a few people might dance, or you'd have music while you're dining. But this was not a resort that had tons of like that entertainment feel. I will say comparatively, like at the couples resorts we've been to, they might have had some things like trivia games, or like actual singers and bands come in,
karaoke, piano bar type stuff.
They have more variety as far as those things.
And again, Paya Bay had nothing.
Yeah.
So you had Paya Bay with zero entertainment.
And Hawksbill's kind of in the middle.
Hawksbill's kind of your bare minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, you had a guy at dinner that would do stuff. Or they would bring in a little 3-man band or something, and they would just play.
But for us, again, for our style, that's not important to us, because the dinner was more about, we would usually meet some people just randomly there talking and eat dinner with somebody different, and that, so a lot of people you saw there, they'd be like, this is my 20th time here or something.
Yeah, we
so
met
there's
a lady,
a lot
she
of
said
repeaters.
this was her 22nd time coming to Hawksbill.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah, so they
love it.
it.
I mean, you can tell, it's like you find those people that this is their home away from home.
So it's, again, that's why I think for us it was so interesting, because it is a complete middle ground. But because it has less, I think, of those extras, it's a little smaller, a little more intimate feel, more, you got to know, I feel like, the people who work there. I will say, people talked about service. I found it was interesting. most of the people, they weren't quite, like in Jamaica, there's kind of a vibe. It's a very friendly, I feel like, country, at least, and not just, because again, we have friends, we've stayed in very non-resort areas too, but maybe a little more open culture. What I found with the people here at Hawksbill, if you gave them the opportunity, like, we might meet somebody who might seem a little, I don't know if you'd even use standoffish, probably the wrong word, but you would think, oh, they're just doing their job. But then if you joked with them or said something, it totally opened them up. It was a very different experience.
Yeah, they seem to be a little bit more reserved.
Yeah.
Than like a Jamaican server.
Right.
And
but once you talked to them, they were super friendly.
We never had bad service,
right.
ever.
No.
Everybody there was super nice. They were just more
culturally,
reserved,
just a little more
culturally introverted, it seemed.
Yeah.
But then you got to talking to them, and they would laugh and cut up with you, and they remembered you, and you just had great conversations.
Yeah.
And so, the service I thought was I have no complaints about the service.
The one other thing I will say about food and water, I'm very much a stickler as a person who has had food poisoning and C. diff. I mean, legitimate. I had Campylobacter one time. Like, I've had very serious issues.
But not on a trip.
Not on a trip, no. But I'm very careful because of that. I am much more of a rule follower and stickler for making sure, like, what I eat and things. We did not get sick, and I also asked a lot of these repeaters, which I figured the answer was going to be that they didn't, but I did ask them early on. We met someone who'd been there a number of times, and I said, is there anything you avoid eating or you feel like, isn't as safe? And they said no, and they had water refill They would give you some bottled waters in your room, but they had water refill stations everywhere. You could go up to the bars at any point. We took, I highly advise doing this, the big like water bottles, because I drink a lot of water, the insulated ones that keeps it cold. So we would just go up to the bar area. That's why we really connected. I got so much water there. That guy knew us, but it was like he would give us ice, he would give us clean water, so you never had to really worry about that. And we didn't worry about the food. Everything seemed like it was prepared fine. We didn't have any illness or anything.
And the drinks, that's it's all inclusive. So the food's included, and your alcoholic beverages, if that's what you choose to do.
Right.
We partook in quite a bit of that.
Yes.
And everything they had was great.
Fun.
I mean, it was great.
Really good.
Really good drinks, great bar. I mean, complaints whatsoever with food drink is anything you wanted, even if it was on the menu, they would make it.
The one thing they don't have that some other places have, at least couples, they don't have food and drinks. Well, you have drinks in your room, but they don't have food in the rooms. They're pretty strict about that, probably to avoid like bugs and things and all that. But so they don't. But again, that didn't matter to us because we don't do that anyway. So that wasn't a big deal to us, not having room service or anything.
Yeah. And they do come take care of your room every day. I mean, they clean it, they give you fresh towels.
And they will replenish if you tell them, like, water,
alcohol, whatever you need. Yeah. Special privilege book through Hawksbill. I think that if you go to Hawksbill, they give you a one-time mini fridge. I think if you book through them, and I could be wrong, but I think I read that's when they'll replenish it daily for you. You just ask them and they'll do it. So again, booking directly through, I'm sure saves them money because they're not having to like cut, some out for Travelocity or whoever. And, they give you a little something in return for doing that.
Right.
There's 4 beaches at Hawksbill. We talked about the beach we stayed on. and
which I call beach number 1.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll go through the 4 names real quick, but we're just going to refer to them as 1, 2, 3, and 4. Beach 1, what I would say is Royal Palm Beach, and that's where our little bungalow was. It was on the Royal Palm Beach, beach number 1.
So in theory, that's a beach that'd be more reserved for anybody can go on them, but you tend to see the people
there
on the
were
bungalows.
The Royal Palm people. Yeah, there was nobody else that I don't think that ever came over from another part of the actual resort.
Right.
The second beach was Sea Grapes or Main Beach. That's the one where it's the biggest, the easiest to swim in. It's beautiful, lots of chairs. That's where the restaurant, the Sea Grapes Grill is.
Also, the infinity pool is very near that.
It's close. It's kind of in between the two. third beach, or Honeymoon Cove, it was like no man's land.
There was no one ever there.
Ever.
I never saw a person there.
We walked through it, past it, looked at it. They have chairs, they have the little umbrellas, but we never saw anyone there.
And I think two things. I think it was kind of like for that Honeymoon Cove area where Mike said the places are up on the rocks. I think that would be, quote, their beach. But you can just as easily walk to the main beach, which has the grill behind you, and the water is a lot calmer. Main beach is kind of in a cove, and this beach, the water just looked a little more stirred up, even though it was more private. That one did.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. I think the Honeymoon Cove rooms, they sit in between Main Beach and Sea Grapes and Honeymoon Cove, and it is just as easy to go to the bigger beach, and so why go to that little one? And it's the smallest of the four. And then as you continue down the beach, you finally get to the fourth beach, which is Eden. Eden Beach is unique in several reasons. One, it's massive. I mean, it is a long stretch. It is a really, really long beach.
Right.
It's a beautiful beach. I would say the two most unique things about this beach, it is the only clothing optional beach in all of Antigua. In the entire country, this is the only beach that's designated clothing optional. And being optional
does not mean you have to.
There was obviously there were people who took advantage of that, but then there was others who didn't, and it wasn't really a very crowded beach. I would say the busiest day might have had 10 couples at peak time, maybe. I mean, it wasn't, but it's so big, you never felt like you were on top of anybody.
Which leads to, somebody might say, well, why would you even want to go to that clothing optional beach unless you are, what do they call it, textile free or whatever, unless you're clothing optional. And it had a little gate, and they would say no cameras or whatever there. But the reasons you'd want to go is because the beach is massive. And so if you want to walk the beach, it's like being on a private beach. I mean, because even our beach, you've still got the little housing things. Like this beach just had woods all the way down to this cliff thing, this big rock that would jut into the water. So that was the other reason this
woods behind you.
Yeah, you had woods behind. Yeah. So I'm doing a bad description here. So
you make it sound like we're trekking through the jungle.
No, it's so what made this so interesting was in these beaches, the way they were enclosed. So even if you did have random people who wanted to walk the beach, there's only one section from that public beach you can get in there. And if you walked all the way to this fourth beach, we think it might have been a mile from our place, right? Easily a mile.
And a half,
so that's a lot of beach you can cover, number one, if you want to walk, if you like that. Number two, they had that gate, but if you walk all the way to the other end, there is this massive cliff that juts into the ocean. There's no way anyone can walk from the other side. Yeah. So there's no, and
there's a fence in the woods.
Yes.
Too,
there's a fence. Yeah. So there's woods behind. So cliff, let's say cliff all the way on the furthest end, the water and the beach, and then the woods behind you, and then the gate that leads you in. But the other reason you'd want to go, the first day we were there, we walked through and we got to see the wild pigs.
Yeah, and that was the other unique thing. So
and I think they're only on that beach.
Clothing optional and pigs.
Yes,
on this beach.
Yeah, so it was
crazy.
it was interesting.
And there was 20. I mean, you're talking. There was a couple of really big mamas
and dads.
A couple of dads
and
a
babies.
Bunch of piglets. Bunch.
And so I just kept a comfortable distance. As a person who grew up, we had hogs, and they can be aggressive if you get in their space, but we were able to get a few pictures. We could put those up, but they were back kind of against the woods. They didn't bother anybody. No. They just it looked like they have their little trail where they go through and walk through. We also would hear, that's the one thing I wanted to say from our beach, there was another cliff on the other side, of us, from the side of the public beach, and you would hear something and you'd be like, is that a baby crying? And it was goats. There would be the goats people let out on that side. They weren't on the beach.
Dozens of goats
but
climbing
in the
all
cliffs.
over these rocks.
Yeah,
and cliffs.
It was really
like
neat.
Goat Island.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we went, there was twice, I think, we walked all the way to the end of Eden just to walk the
Wow.
whole walk. And I would say the last half of that, we didn't see a soul. It literally
was
felt
just
like
us. Yeah.
you couldn't see anybody. Like if you went all the way to the cliff at the end of Eden and you turned and looked back, you couldn't see another human. You could barely see the resort. You know, it was...
And the other reason you would go in that one, and we didn't do this because the water was a little rough for this, but they also say that's the place to enter. You can see Hawksbill Rock.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a rock in the middle of all this water that looks like a Hawksbill sea turtle. And that is the entrance that they say there's a narrow entrance right when you enter that beach, Fourth Beach. If you go down, there's actually, it is kind of rocky in there. It's like, I mean, the beach is sandy, but there's like these rock outcroppings in the water. But there's one little entrance there, and they said that's where you could go in to snorkel. So the first day, I took my snorkel equipment and tried to get in there to swim out that way, but I felt like it was too rough. And so that was not a place. I mean, so that would be the other reason, I think, depending
But
on...
I read online people do. They snorkel
Yeah.
out to that rock.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be the best snorkeling. There's a reef right around
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And so people that want to brave it, they say it's great snorkeling.
So that would be the reasons if you're doing
Yeah.
that beach, you would want to go there if you like long walks on the beach, you know, and or if you want a lot of privacy on the beach. Also, if you wanted to see the wild pigs, that would be your opportunity. And the final reason would be if you want to try to do that, which I attempted but was not successful on the doing the snorkeling on that
And the
side.
clothing optional.
Yeah, and people
I
who
think
like
that's
that.
the draw for
That's
most
probably
people.
most people. Yeah, they probably want to go for that. But
Right.
yeah.
So that's the 4 beaches.
Mm-hmm.
And also on Eden Beach, it also had its own little bar.
Yeah.
Like a little hut that they would bring stuff over and set up. And so you could get everything from water to rum punch. And I think during lunch, they would even bring over like burgers and stuff. We were never over there
Yeah,
at
so we
lunch
did,
to
yeah.
do that. But so that was the only other beach other than the Sea Grapes or Second Beach that had food, you know, on the beach itself. The main beach had the water sports recreation hut, and you could check out things like kayaks. They had a little sailboat you could check out. They had stand-up paddle boards. They had snorkel gear. All of this is free and
Yes.
included in your stay. So you just go and you just sign it out with your room number and take it and go.
And I've paddle boarded in the past on these, and I really wanted to this time, but I spent so much time snorkeling that I never got around to doing it. I love kayaking, but I didn't want to necessarily go out in the kayaks. If I'd done anything, I would have probably done the stand-up paddle board. But since I snorkeled so much, that's where I probably spent most of my time in that water. We bought our own snorkel stuff, but they have the snorkel things if you need it.
And they have just your basic snorkel
Yeah.
gear, you know, and that's fine. Beth and I, we have our own little cheap set that
Yeah.
we like to take places with us just because we know it and like it. It works for us, but that's where we did. When we snorkeled on that beach.
Because that had a cove kind of in between the rock outcroppings.
Mm-hmm.
So even though the other brave people try to snorkel on that other side, this to me was by far the calmest water.
Yeah.
So it was
you
the
could just
easiest
float.
to snorkel
You
in.
didn't. It wasn't like you were having to
Yeah.
swim to stay.
Right. And you could be very shallow and then kind of hug the side
shoreline,
of
yeah,
the
the rock
shoreline,
line.
and you could. And there were people who said, I didn't do this, but there's some people who said they would snorkel all the way around to Fourth Beach, as we call it, the clothing optional pig beach, or they would snorkel down and around.
And you're not calling the people on the
No,
clothing optional
the
pigs,
pigs.
are you?
No, I'm saying there are pigs there.
You can't be body
I
shaming
know.
that.
I'm just saying, like, no. And then there are people who said they would snorkel around to the other side where our place was. Again, we didn't do that. I kind of stayed in, because this is massive area. And so if you're snorkeling all of that I was already in the water one day for probably like over an hour snorkeling, and I just covered like the side of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Yep. You mentioned the pool just a little bit ago. Gorgeous pool.
Yeah.
It's an infinity pool. It sits up on a cliff. It's probably 30 feet above the water.
Yeah.
Water being that cove on Main Beach.
Right.
Just absolutely, just gorgeous. It's more of a conversation pool.
Yeah, so some people I think had said it's not a lap pool. I mean, but you're not going to be swimming
And there were
laps
people
in it.
trying to swim laps, you know,
Yeah.
and they would just go from one end to the other. But it's probably 4.5 feet deep, if I had to guess, at its deepest point. And most people just got in and kind of hugged the wall
Yeah.
and just overlooked the ocean.
Yeah.
And got some drinks and just sat there and talked.
Yeah.
And it was gorgeous. I know the day that Beth snorkeled for 5 hours, it felt like. It was an hour. Beth you got really far out, and
Yeah.
you were perpendicular to the pool. And I just went up to the pool and got a drink and just sat there on the wall and just watched you snorkel and made friends with the old ladies, and it was fine. And but it is a beautiful, beautiful pool in a great setting. Plenty of pool chairs, lots of loungers. We never had a problem getting a lounge chair there by the pool.
I had read people say that's a problem they've had at other times, but we didn't have that problem. We didn't have a problem with people there were some people who put their towels down and held them, but not
I think that was
much.
more Main Beach.
Yeah, I think that
felt
was, yeah.
We would see the Main Beach covered up.
Yeah.
With towels, people going out there pretty early to reserve their seats.
Yeah.
And our rhythm, I guess, ended up being we would get up, go eat breakfast, come back, put on our bathing suits, get our sunscreen on, and make the hike all the way over to Fourth Beach.
Yep.
And spend some time there, walk the beach.
There weren't a ton of seashells, but we did find a few seashells.
And that was the one beach that had the seashells.
Yes, that's
if
the
there
only
was.
place you're
And,
going to find them.
We'd spend a little bit of time there, and then about lunchtime, we'd head over to
Second Beach.
Because
again, nobody goes to Third Beach.
Yeah, nobody goes to Third. Walk right past Third. Go to Second. We'd snorkel, and because except for one day, we made the reservations. So
Right.
we always made late reservations for lunch,
lunch,
like
yeah.
1:45. So when I say we'd get over there about lunchtime, we'd get over there about noon.
Yeah.
And we'd have about an hour and a half, easily just to snorkel and do whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what we would do. And then we'd go up, put our stuff by the pool, go eat lunch there at that little grill, come back out,
Sit at the pool.
sit in the pool, by the pool for a little bit. You'd read, whatever. And then we'd finally make our way back over to our beach where we'd spend probably like the last hour or so of the day.
Yeah.
And just kind of sit on our beach and watch the sun set. And then we'd
Go in and get ready for dinner.
freshen up and head over to dinner.
That was the rhythm of our days. And then we would eat dinner, and the reason the entertainment didn't matter, I will say there's no TV or anything in the room. There's nothing like that. So, I guess some people might be like, oh, well, we were just so tired. It's exhausting sitting on the beach and snorkeling in the sun. But no, we would by the time we ate and did all of that, we would, go and just go to bed. It'd be nighttime. It'd be that time. We did take some card games. And so that was fun. So we would sometimes play cards after breakfast or whatever. We'd play our little card games.
Yeah, and we're board gamers, and so we do that a lot on these
Yeah.
little trips. We'll just take a bunch of pocket games or games that we can easily pack in a small bag or something, and take those to dinner and lunch to the beach with us, and just sit there and play and hang out, and do that kind of thing. You were worried. I'm not concerned about bugs. I don't get bug bites. You get eaten alive.
Yes.
What was your fear about the bugs, and what happened?
Well, I was going to have you too. You can drop some of the stuff later. We'll try to drop some links of what I used and didn't use. But because we wanted to carry on, I had to space out our liquids between our bags. So I bought these little squeezable travel packs. They worked really well. The bottles did. I really like the Hawaiian Tropic sunblock, and so I used that. So every day it did take a little time, but I had to put the bigger bottles in the smaller bottles, and then we would take the little smaller bottles to squeeze around. Because we were carrying on, we didn't take any spray on sunblock or any spray on bug spray. We only had the bottle lotion kind. But I would put on my sunblock, let the sunblock get in, soak in on the lotion. And then I like it's got Picaridin, I think it is, more so than the DEET. The DEET type of off will literally, if you have nail polish or certain fibers, will like melt them and dissolve them. I do think some people say it's the strongest, but both in Roatan and here, when I used a bug spray, I used this off Picaridin lotion type and it's supposed to last, I think, up to 12 hours. But if you're swimming, it comes off. I had to be very diligent. We'll talk about that on a Roatan forum about the insects. But look, this was very good because I do think the bites that I got were primarily not mosquitoes. I think they might have been what they call the no-see-ums when I did get a few. And those only, I think, happened if I went out early in the morning or late at night without the bug spray. I don't think I would have needed, I mean, when I say bug spray, I mean the bug lotion because I didn't take the sprays. But I don't think I needed it during the day. But I will say it rained for us. There was one day it rained a little bit in the afternoon, but it rained every night. And we had our stuff hanging up outside to dry, like our swimsuits, and they were soaked. I mean, and it poured rain. You would hear it pouring rain at night. And so the last morning when I got up, there was like a cloud of mosquitoes early in the morning when I went outside to sit outside. But other than that, I was really pleasantly surprised by how few bug bites I got. Probably... and without being diligent too, like when I was in Roatan, it was like I had sunblock and I had the bug lotion on every moment of the day when I was outside of my room, essentially. I was not like that with this. I would put some on my feet and legs at night, like when we went to dinner and things. And so that seemed to control it and be enough. They did have a... if you are carrying on and need the sprays, we did buy at the gift shop 1 bottle of spray on sunblock and 1 bottle of spray on off. I don't know what they cost because you pick those up one of the days. Yeah, so they're probably expensive. So again, you might want to try to use my method. We'll drop the links to the little squeeze bottles, the travel packages I used that I liked a lot, and to the bug lotion that I used, as well as the sunblock that worked well for us.
Yeah. And 2 things. One was an observation. At our meals, there were never any bugs around us.
Right.
Like Roatan, and I don't think this is any fault of Paya Bays. It was just the environment there. Yeah. They had to put these little... rechargeable fans that you would sit at your table that would spin, that would keep the flies, the gnats, and things off your food. And I never had. I don't even think I swatted anything. There was no bugs at all.
Right.
You had to worry about the birds more than you had to worry.
They had to keep the food and things covered for the birds.
For the birds, not the bugs. Yeah. There was no bugs at dinner, breakfast, whatever. And then I had read prior to the trip that Hawksbill kept bug spray in the rooms, and there's a lot of confusion over what this bug spray is for, if it's for the actual room or your body. I can confirm it is for the room. Yes. It is not for your body. Mm-hmm. So they put bug spray in the room for you to spray around your windows and the door if you feel like you need it. We never used it. Right. That room was sealed really nicely, and I never saw an ant. I never saw a bug. There was nothing in our room. And so there was no need that we found. One of the other rooms may be different, but the room that we had was really well sealed. And, we didn't sit there with our door wide open either. But that's what the spray is for. They do give you a can of spray to spray around, the door frames, window frames and stuff. That's supposed to keep them away if you need it. Yeah. Couple of things, I just call these little quirks, things to think about. One, I read a lot about is tipping. Again, I'm going to keep comparing this to couples in Paya Bay. Couples, there's no tipping. You're not allowed to tip. And so you don't have to worry about that.
They pride themselves on paying what they believe is a fair and livable wage.
Right.
Yeah.
This was like Paya Bay and probably like most resorts where tipping, I don't want to say it's expected, but they definitely don't turn it down.
Right.
And, and I think our European friends, tipping is not something that is part of their culture as much as it is in America.
Right.
And so I think when we were there, I would bet 60, 70% seemed to be from Europe, the people who were visiting. And so I wonder if they just kind of expect, well, we're not going to get tips just because that's not their culture. We made sure that we tipped a few folks, but we did it at the very end of the week. And, that's kind of how we did it. You can tip if you want to tip, don't. I didn't feel like the service was lacking because we weren't tipping every meal.
Right.
And, you read online, some people are like, oh, I tip early so that way I can get good service the rest of the week. Well, we didn't tip till the end of the week, and I didn't feel like our service was lacking at all. I felt like they were waiting on us as good as we would get at another resort that we stayed at in the Caribbean. I just felt like they were that good. As I mentioned, that they refresh your towels. They will give you obviously bath towels as much as you need, but they do give you you start off with 2 beach towels, and then they have a beach towel hut, and it's open twice a day, and you can go by there and exchange your 2 beach towels for 2 new towels.
But you have to hope your timing lines up with when they're
and they
open.
do it. It's from like 9 to 10 in the morning and 3 to 4 in the afternoon. So, so we would typically time it to where I would swap it out in the mornings. Like we would have our towels all day, and then that next morning, as we were walking over to 4th Beach, Eden Beach, we would just swap out towels and get new towels that night. So that was the only little quirk when it comes to that. They do give you beach towels. You can keep the same towel all week if you want.
Yeah.
But if you want fresh ones, you get 2 opportunities each day to swap those out. For whatever reason, they were a little stingy with the washcloths.
Yes.
Which is kind of weird. They start you off with 2 washcloths.
So it's not like they're one of these countries that doesn't have washcloths.
No, and every day they bring you clean towels while you're out. So you come in, the room's been refreshed, your bed's made, everything's been swept, clean. There's a whole stack of new towels, and we had no washcloths.
Yeah.
So every day I had to call and be like, yeah, we didn't get our washcloths. And they'd bring them to us immediately. But it was just really weird that they would bring us all the rest of the towels and not washcloths.
Which, as an aside, this is important for particularly women trying to pack your toiletries if you're carrying on. They do have large pump bottles of shampoo, conditioner, and soap. Mm-hmm. The reason I throw that out there, some countries don't provide conditioner. And so if you've got long hair or tangly hair like mine, that you might want to bring yours. But for this, and they had lotion. They had some lotion in the room too. So they had shampoo, conditioner, body wash, and lotion.
Yeah.
So they
and I use their body wash. I mean, we always take ours just in case, but I use theirs and I thought it was great. I mean, it was fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Resort size. I asked one of the managers what the capacity was of Hawksbill, and she told me it was 200. She said during peak season they average about 170. Mm-hmm. So it's never really full. So I mean that. You stay at couples, depending on, there's 4 couple resorts. Some are bigger than that. Some are a little smaller than that. We stayed at Paya Bay. Paya Bay had 13 rooms.
Yeah, it was very small.
I mean, it's very small.
Yeah.
It's what you would call a boutique resort.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But this, I don't know how many people were there, but it never felt crowded.
Right.
I mean, it felt full. Like at dinner, you would look around and most tables were full.
Yeah.
But you never had to wait for anything.
No.
There was never a line for anything. You never felt crowded. And we were there at peak season.
Yeah.
They said peak season was December through March. Mm-hmm. And we're there first week of February. So we were there right there. So, and like we talked about before, resort size physically, we were in the very last house you could be in at one end. And it was a walk to get to the far end of Eden Beach.
Yes.
It was at least, I would say, a minimum 20-minute walk. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
20 to 30, to walk from our place, one end to the other.
Right, yeah.
So it is a very physically large resort stretched out,
Yeah.
on this one size. Average age, like I said, we're both 50. And I feel like the resorts, most of these inclusive resorts like this tend to grade older. You know, I think the younger folks, they go to the Cancuns and places like that.
Or places with more entertainment and stuff.
Parties and things. This was definitely a mature adult crowd.
Yeah.
And we were on the younger side.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of retirees, but they were great.
Yeah.
You know? And there were some young folks. There was a couple of really young couples that, when I say young, I was going to say like mid-20s, you know, that were there. They advertise themselves as an adult-only resort, but adult to them, I think, starts at age 16, I think, or something like that. But I never saw... There was never anybody younger than their 20s.
Right. I didn't see any children or anything.
And so it felt like, and that's what we like about couples is it's adult only, 18 and up, and it's couples only.
Yeah, so it's not like parties or anything.
So you're not getting that.
Like a bachelor party or something like that.
Or the creeper loner dude. You just don't get that. And I didn't get that vibe here either.
Yeah.
I felt like this was a very safe, boring resort in that regard.
Right.
It's not going to draw those types of people.
Yeah.
So we said, like I said, when we travel, we've rarely gone to the same place again. There's been a few beaches we've gone back to before, especially here in the States that we like. But resort-wise, even couples, we go to... The couples resorts we've been to have been different couples resorts.
Yeah, we went to different resorts in different areas of the country. We haven't been back to the same one. Hawksbill,
we both agree, was probably the first resort that we were like, we could come back here. Like, I could see us going back there. We even joked and said we might make this an annual tradition. Like every February, just because it was easy to get to, it was affordable. It checked all the boxes for us.
The size was really good. You know, not too big, not too small. We're like Goldilocks. It was just right.
It was for us. It was darn near perfect.
And the price point compared to some other things, I feel like it's still very affordable.
And if you book, we've already looked. I mean, you book far enough in advance from the website, they knock off 30%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a nice chunk. And so you can stay 5 or 6 nights here for, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna guess, even if you stayed in the Royal Palms, which is like their most expensive room, and for 2 people, because they charge you, per room or whatever, however it does. It's, $2,000, for like 5 nights.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you're looking at $400 a night.
It's because you're thinking about, not just your room, but all your food, your transportation to and from the airport. I mean,
all your water sports, everything.
You don't have to. The only thing we paid for, the only thing. Oh, and they even have a thing. We didn't do this, but you can sign up and take like a taxi into town St. John's, and like I can't remember, whatever it was, it looked affordable. We didn't do it, but if you wanted to do that, you have to pay. It is a little extra, but they'll do that. And then I didn't go, but they did have a yoga class one morning. That is one other thing. Some places have more, I think, of those, like, like couples would have water fitness classes and things like that. But again, it just depends on what you're looking for. But but we did pay for our outing with Extreme Antigua, which was amazing. That was the only time we left the resort. That was a full day adventure. That was a lot of fun. And that was independent, but they came to the resort and picked us up in a boat. So literally, if you go, this one truly is all inclusive. It's not, because sometimes too, if you're on a cruise or something like that, they're like, okay, well, here's your cruise, but you have to pay for the internet package, and you have to pay for your drink package, and the Coke, great. And exactly. We didn't use
Wi-Fi was in the room was just as strong as it was at Main Beach.
Yeah, so we were able to we didn't have to have our cell phones on the whole time. We just kept it in airplane mode and used the Wi-Fi the whole time, which was nice.
Yeah, so it was wonderful. It was a great, great stay, very affordable. They have direct flights from the U.S. right to Antigua. I mean, our flight went from Charlotte to Antigua direct, and then coming back.
We did
Antigua to Miami, and then Miami back up to where we are at.
Yeah.
So as a resort as a whole, we highly recommend it. We give it 4 thumbs up.
Yeah, it was fun. Right? Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little excursion.
Yeah,
so
really
you
quick.
brought that up real quick, and we're going to wrap up with this because there's a lot of times. I don't want to say we don't. I don't know. The excursions we've done in the past have been typically when we do like a cruise, like you dock somewhere. We usually don't do kind of the port because that's just touristy junk. We like to take these fun, deep into the country excursions. And so I was hesitant to do an excursion because I was like, it's an all-inclusive. I don't know if we want to, but I kept hearing about this one in particular, and I think it was called, and we'll get it right in the link, Adventure Antigua. And the one tour that we did was their extreme tour. And what they did,
and it was extreme.
Yes. And literally they picked us up on our beach. Like, we didn't even have to leave the resort.
Okay, and one interesting thing about them too, we have been to some other countries. The vibe is, if they say 8 o'clock, it could mean anywhere between 8 and 8:45. These people were prompt. They said, we are going to be here, and we looked down, and I'm like, there they are.
They were
right
like,
on
we're
time.
going to be there 8:15 sharp.
Yeah.
And they were there 8:15 sharp.
Uh-huh.
And so that they did. They pulled the boat right up to the beach. We
walked in maybe up to our knees or whatever.
Climbed in the boat.
Yeah.
There was 2 girls already on the boat that were from another resort.
Yeah.
And then we spent the next 30 minutes
picking up people
from various resorts and add them to our daily trek. And
even picked up people from cruise ships.
Yep, we
that
picked
were
up,
cruising.
Yep, a girl from a cruise ship, at least one.
Uh-huh.
What do you think? Maybe 15, 18 people max,
on there.
On there. And then we went on our excursion. And I cannot say nice enough things about the tour company, the excursion. The 3 guys that were on the boat were fantastic. They were friendly. They were informative.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, and it was long. Like, they picked us up at 8:15 and they dropped us off around 4:30.
Yeah.
I mean, we were gone for 8 hours.
Day. And they're very conscious about, it doesn't sound like it when we tell you a story in a minute about the extremeness, but they were very thoughtful about time and safety, because the lady that was on this excursion, she was on a cruise ship, and she said that I saw them come up at one point and be like, are we okay on our timing of getting you back? And she said they were more conscious and thoughtful about getting her back on time for her cruise ship than the excursions, the cruise books. So they were great about that. But they also told us, even for some of the things we'd go out and do, we'll take you to this beach, but it'll depend on the tides, so they were very upfront about, we're going to go do all these things, but which beach we go to or where we may do it may change a little throughout the day depending on the safety of the water conditions and stuff. So they were great.
Yeah, it was fabulous. And so we did, ours was part snorkeling, part beach, part stingray tour.
Yeah.
And so they took us to a place they call Stingray City.
Yeah.
It is a natural habitat. It's not
I thought it was going to be on the side of the land. It's in the middle of the water.
Yeah, they built a little dock in the middle of a sandbar. And you just pull up, get off, and you get out, and there's stingrays everywhere. And they said when they hear the boat motor coming, they all come because they know they're probably going to get fed.
Yeah.
And so the boat folks, they're the ones who feed the stingrays. But then you get to go have your pictures made with the stingrays. And
you can snorkel around and
with
look.
them. I mean, it was so much fun. And you're right. You're in the middle of the ocean. You're not... And they're free to come and go, these stingrays. Like I said, this is their natural habitat. It wasn't some kind of stingray rescue center or man-made, we've captured you and kept you in here. It's they may come, they may not. It's up to them. And so it felt really cool. They took us to a couple of beaches. They took us into an area, a historical area.
Told us the history.
Gave us a tour and talked about a lot of the history of Antigua.
They provided us lunch in the beach area. You got off in one of the beach areas, and they had pasta salad, chicken wings. Wasn't it chicken wings? Chicken, some kind of chicken. Punch, water. And then they had one of the ladies was vegetarian, so they had made a special dish for her. Again, just extremely thoughtful and considerate about everyone's needs.
Right.
But my favorite can we tell the adventure extreme
Yeah.
part? Oh my gosh. So we had like such a fun bunch, and they told you when you sit down, if you wanted, okay, there were two options. You could either sit toward the front of the boat, which they said would feel a little like a roller coaster. So we were like, oh yeah, we're going to be in the front. Or you could be in the back where you might get splashed more, but there were like chairs, seats, or whatever.
Benches.
So since we were in the front, we were on these benches, and they told us it was like a long bench on the left side and the right side, and they were like, you have to straddle these benches. And we were like, huh? And but okay. So it was almost like you're riding a horse or something, you're sitting kind of straddling the bench. Well, once we got going, we understood why, because there were parts where we're floating through the Caribbean and it is as calm as it can be. But then there were other parts as we went around the island that we were in the Atlantic. And the whole time we're going around, they're telling us stuff like, up there on that cliff is, Eric Clapton's house, or over here's Holmes. They're giving us all this tour guide information. Well, there are points when we are in the Atlantic part that I am trying to it's like I'm horseback riding. I am trying to grip the seat with my legs to protect my lower back and stuff, because we are going, you can see waves. I feel like I was on one of those shows where the ship is going into the wave and you're like, the boat's gonna turn over backwards as the wave's coming over you.
I mean, there was a moment where I'm like, is this what The Perfect Storm felt like? In that movie back in the day?
And we were getting airborne and slamming down, it felt like. And when they would do it, they would yell, extreme! But my favorite was there was a lady in front of us, and she was the one that was from the cruise ship. And so we're hanging on, and she's like screaming at parts of it, because I know the people in the back were like, what is happening up front? But not only could we feel the waves much more intensely, we could see them. I would look and I would be like, this is it. This is when that wave comes and turns over this boat and we don't make it out. And at one point, we're jumping up on these huge waves, and we're holding on, and we're getting splashed in the face. And one of the guys comes, and he was like, and over here on this you can see, and he's trying to yell over the waves. And she's like, is he tour guiding right now? Is he tour guiding on these waves? She made tour guiding a verb. I loved it, because she was just in shock. She's like, we are hanging on for dear life, airborne on these waves, and he's giving us a tour guide account. But it was just such an adventure.
And she is a well-traveled person.
Oh, yes.
And, I mean,
she was on a cruise, a 10-day cruise going to all the islands and stuff.
And she travels all the time and does all these excursions. And even she said this may be the best excursion she's ever done in her life.
Yeah. And she was the one yelling and screaming, too.
But she was yelling out of fun. She was it wasn't get me off this crazy thing. No, it was just oh, my gosh.
And she also said that she had done another excursion with this same company. I guess she came there a few years ago, and she said it was like an eco tour, and they would stop you on one of these island things, because there's also these huge rock outcroppings kind of in the Caribbean Sea, and there was one of those that kind of would let you hike inside this little cave and stuff. So that was another reason, if we went back, I would 1,000% do an outing with this group again. I would probably want to try that eco tour. But these are also the guys, if you go back and listen to one of the podcasts where Mike had messaged them, and it just started off, they had a great sense of humor, great personalities, just really friendly, nice guys. And so it was a lot of fun. I loved it.
Yeah, so if you want to go back to one of our previous episodes, the episode is called Nice Try, Diddy.
Yeah.
That's the one. But you'll hear some more personal stories of the resort and the experience.
Yes.
Just some funny stuff, things that we don't really want to bore you with here.
Yeah.
But if you want to hear just some stupid stories that happened to Beth and I, it's on the Nice Try, Diddy podcast. But that was it. I mean, that's kind of our review of Antigua, of the resort. Leaving was perfect. They told us what time to be ready. Porter was there at our door, got our luggage, got our taxi, got to the airport on time, went right through.
Yeah, got to the airport in plenty of time.
I mean, it was as smooth as it could possibly be, arriving and departing.
And a few things about that airport really quick before you leave. I always want to know what people have. They did have they had like this big shop area that would have a few souvenirs and stuff, and bottled water and bagged snacks and some like local types of candy and stuff you could take back. And they did have like a little place that served some hot food that you could walk up and order. They had some sandwiches and pizza and stuff like that you could order, hot sandwiches. So it's not like massive, but there's some food options and stuff there at the airport. And we didn't have any issues at the airport. It's small. I mean, it's just a few gates. It's not a big airport. It's not difficult to navigate or anything like that. So it was a smooth experience as well.
So I would recommend Antigua. Would you, Beth?
Oh, yes, 100%.
And I think both of us would highly recommend Hawksbill for your stay.
Yes.
If that's the kind of resort you're looking for.
Yeah, if you want low-key, relaxing.
And we would recommend Adventure Antigua.
Yes, because they're so fun.
Yeah. So they're all around. It was a great, great trip. Just felt like we wanted to share the love, and once we get this posted, it'll have links and stuff for some of the things we've talked about. If you guys want to click on that, and like I said, we're not making anything off this. This is just a review, which is a labor of love, just letting people know about our time
and a place we really enjoyed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for listening. You can always check us out. If this is the first time you've ever listened to us, you can check us out at heyareyoustillthere.com. You can go back and listen to any of our podcasts. They're shown on all the major streaming sites, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all of those. But we'd love to have you join our Hey Are You Still There family. We're also on Facebook, so we put a lot of stuff up on our Facebook page, sometimes pictures from some of the things, and we may do that once this gets posted. We'll post on the Facebook some of our pictures from our trip, just so you can kind of get an idea of some of the things we got to see and experience.
Yep,
But
sounds great.
Other than that, thanks a lot for being with us.
Thank you.